Hello everyone and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and today we have the first of my cube update videos. Now there's been so many changes to my cube since the first videos came out on the channel, and there's been so many great suggestions from you all in the comments section below. I think I counted over 300 changes to my cube. So instead of just doing videos that just cover the changes to my cube, I've decided to do videos that cover everything for each of the colours. That way each of the people that are new to the channel will be able to see what my cube has now, plus it gives you a greater understanding of why I've made certain changes and the grand overall scheme, and you can then tell how much better the actual cube is in comparison to what it was before. But what I will do in the future is make sure that I don't leave it 300 changes before I do another video, so I will do update videos for my cube more regularly. That way they'll be more digestible and there should only really be like 20 cards to update. That's the hope anyway. Depends on how good a future set's going to be and how many more singles I end up buying. So in this video we're going to be going over the white cards that I have in my cube and any of the changes that I've made recently to this section. So without any further ado, let's get stuck in. So starting off with the white Planeswalkers, we've added another one into the cube, which would end up being Gideon of the Trials from the new set. Now, I haven't been overly impressed with him so far. I mean, it's really nice to have. You can just lock something down with his +1. It's fantastic, especially later on in the game. And his second 0 ability, which means that you can pay 3 mana and you can be swinging him with a 4/4 as well, which is really nice to have. But to be perfectly honest, his +1 ability here, just preventing all damage a target opponent would deal, is really nice to have. But I haven't been overly impressed with him. Maybe more games I end up playing, he may end up being better. And Gideon, ally of Zendikar, as you saw before, is just a really solid Planeswalker. I mean, it's, you know, a 5/5 he can turn into. He's great for adding more tokens onto the battlefield and 2/2 soldiers when he's 0 ability, or later on in the game, if you don't necessarily need him, just using that -4 to getting an emblem for +1/+1 on all your creatures could really be great. And then the last one we've got here is Elspeth, Sun's Champion. I'd love to get my hands on the other Elspeth as well, the slightly cheaper one. But this one is just great. I mean, for 6 cost, coming straight in, destroying all creatures with power 4 or greater has been used quite a lot, to be perfectly honest, especially against certain strategies. But you know, the +1 ability of getting lots of blockers in, which is really nice, and loads of token strategies there. Or, you know, the -7 has happened a couple of times, but it's not necessarily always going to happen. You know, giving creatures +2/+2 and flying would just be a game ender. But to be perfectly honest, the -3 has been used so much, and it's just a really solid Planeswalker. But like I said, I'd love to get my hands on the other Elspeth. So moving on into the 1-drops, and again, some of the cards will be the same as before. To be perfectly honest, what I ended up doing with my cube is I was having a look at the converted mana cost of all of it, and to be honest, my 1-drops were just not good enough. White weenies wasn't even doable in the first iteration of my cube, and I really wanted to make sure that, you know, white aggro, red aggro as well, and black would just meant that, you know, there's a bit more support for it. So Kithian here, again, it's really good 2/1, gains indestructible, turning him into a Planeswalker, and to be perfectly honest, it's nice to have the addition of protecting himself in Planeswalker form. Really nice to be able to get a blocker of your opponents to attack if they don't want to, which is really nice, and you can get some nice plays off that. Giving a creature indestructible is always useful, and then making him a 4/4 indestructible creature as well is just really handy, especially if you can get it that flipped over early on. But still, a 2/1 for 1 is really nice. Other 2/1 for 1s, okay, we've got Dragon Hunter, which is really nice, and there is the occasional dragon in the set as well, so, you know, reach is always going to be useful there. Elite Vanguard, again, and your 2/1 for 1. Mardu Woe Reaper, again, is just another really nice 2/1 for 1. You know, and when he enters the battlefield, he also has a tiny bit of a little ability there. You exile a creature card from a graveyard, so it's really nice against, you know, some certain strategies there, and you gain a little life as well. And the last one again is Soldier of the Pantheon, is another 2/1 for 1 here. Protection from Monocolors is really useful, and whenever they cast a Monocolor spell, you gain a bit of life, so you're getting a little bit of a plus off the top of that. But again, a 2/1 for 1. Champion of the Parish is still the same as beforehand. It's just because there's a fair few warriors in here as well, so he could really get quite big over time, which is really nice to have. Mother of Runes, again, same as before, just a really solid 1-drop. You know, tapping here, and then getting a target creature gains protection from a colour, which is just really useful in certain situations. Thraben Inspector is still probably one of my favourite defensive 1-drops in white. Again, human is a little sub theme going on in my white section as well. Investigating means you can get a little bit of card draw later on in the game. That's really useful, so great card there. Another 1-drop I've added in is Gideon's Lawkeeper, just because paying 1 white mana and tapping it to tap down a target creature can just keep something tapped down for the entirety of the game. Same as Gideon of the Trials there from previously. It's just nice to have something, so you're just keeping it out of the game until this gets removed. And to be honest, I don't have an issue with the opponent using a removal to get rid of this guy instead of something else. And Topplegeist I've kept in because a 1/1 flying 1/1 flyer for 1 is really nice. Tapping a target creature your opponent controls when it comes into play is really useful, and Delirium isn't that difficult in Cube to actually achieve, so it's just a really nice, slightly irritating little 1-drop, and I've been impressed with this card. So moving on into the 2-drops here, we've got Precinct Captain here. So for 2 white, you've got yourself a 2/2 first strike, deals combat damage, get a 1/1 white soldier. Fairly on in the game, this is actually very easy to achieve, to get a fair few of those, which is really nice. Thalia's Lieutenant, again, it gets to improve over time with the human's little tribal going on in the white. I mean, to be perfectly honest, most people's cubes in white section will have a human theme going on, and this is just a really solid card to have. A new addition here in Hidden Dragon Slayer. I mean, it's just a 2/1 lifelink for 2, and you can always megamorph him, turn face up, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. I haven't got a huge amount of morph cards within my cube, but this certainly is a very good one to have. The lifelink's always useful. Hammer Militia Captain is the same as before, so you get to flip it over if you've got 4 or more creatures, which really shouldn't be too difficult. And then its power and toughness is equal to the number of creatures you control, plus you get yourself have even more creatures, which means this will power up as well, which is just really solid. Aether Geode Miner I've actually been quite impressed with. So it's a 3/1 for 2. Whenever it attacks, you get the 2 energy, and you can pay 2 energy to exile it and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it can protect itself every time it attacks as well. So if you go and attack in, someone puts a blocker up against it, you can just go, nah, I'm not going to bother with that. And it's almost like a little pseudo vigilance thing going on there. Glorybound Initiate's another card I actually quite like, especially earlier on in the game. Exerting it to give yourself a 4/4 with lifelink is just fantastic, but if you don't always have to, if the opponent's got no blockers, just swinging in for a 3/1 is always good. And Offender's the same as before, so again, 2 cost 2/2, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, bolster 1, so that's just going to make your little creatures even stronger. Consul's Lieutenant again, 2/1 for 2 with first strike, and has renown, and when it becomes a renowned, other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 to the end of turn, so it's got a quite little anthem effect going on there, and to be honest, that shouldn't be too difficult. Raise the Alarm is now in the creature section. Again, it's just 2 costs for 2 1/1 white soldiers, always useful. Lone Missionary I've added in, so enters the battlefield, gain 4 life, always useful on a 2/1. It's definitely something that might be worth abusing later on a little blocker as well, so with Flicker. War Piece of Thune I've just upgraded, opened up a foil. I'm not really sure you can really see it properly going on here, but yeah, it's just a solid 2/2 for 2 bear, which isn't fantastic, but when it enters the battlefield, destroy target enchantments, so that's always useful to have. Can't get the 4 to show up. Imposing Sovereign's just one of those irritating cards that you just like to have in cube, so creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Always useful to have. Wall of Omens has come in, so it's a 2 cost 0/4 defender, and you get to draw a card as well, so that is always useful, more so in a control situation rather than an aggressive one. True Heart Duelist is a card that I have enjoyed from the new set. I mean, it's been quite difficult to actually see with the artwork there. I'd love to get my hands on the promo card from Game Day though, that's for sure, because I just love that artwork. But this is really nice because it's a 2/2 for 2 that can block an additional creature each combat, which can be very useful. Plus the Embalm ability is always nice, so you can bring it back from the graveyard as a token, and then you get to have that again. So you could be potentially blocking for not too much more mana 4 creatures in 2 combat phases, which is always useful. Of course, Skyfisher is the same as before. I've got it in foil. It's struggling to see it on there, but no, it is actually foil. This is just to help with the bounce effect is really great for potential Flicker archetype going on in the cube as well, so that's something that I've wanted to really push more. And Selfless Spirit is just a really solid card. It's a 2/1 fly, which is always useful to be swinging in with, plus you can sacrifice at any point in time to give your creatures indestructible, especially on against board wipes. So moving into the 3-drops, there are a few changes. I mean, Aerial Responder is still here. I mean, it's a 2/3 for 1/2 white for Flying Vigilance and Lifelink, which is always useful to have. It's not quite Vampire Nighthawk, but it's still very good. Mentor of the Meek is next. So it's a 2/2 for 3. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1 to draw a card, which is always useful, especially as I've now improved the number of, smaller creatures within the cube, so that's always good. Thalia is just fantastic. So it's a 3/2 first strike for 3, and creatures and non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped, and that's really very useful, especially in cube. Fantastic card. Solemn Recruits next that I've added in. So for 1 and 2 white, you've got yourself a 2/2 with double strike, which is always good. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. That trigger is very, very easy to achieve, and it just means that you can keep pumping it up over time, especially good in either a flicker deck. I mean, Evolving Wilds will do this, cracking a fetch land will do this. It's just so many ways of getting that, so I really have been impressed by that card. Porcelain Legionnaire, so it's a 2 and a white, but most, to be perfectly nice, I picked this in a lot of other colours as well. For a 3/1 first striker, that's always useful to have. Blade Splicer was one of the cards that opened up in Modern Masters 2017. I've got a load of new cards from that set, which has been really, really good for my cube. So again, it's 2 and a white for a 1/1, enters the battlefield, 3/3 colourless golem token, comes onto the battlefield, and it gets first strike as well, which is always really handy to have. And to be perfectly honest, a perfect target to be flickered. Spectral Possession, again, it's a sorcery card, but it's really here just for creatures. So for 3 white, you get to put 3 white spirit creature tokens onto the battlefield, so that's always useful to have. Mirror Entity is there for more of a token strategy, just to can pump up ridiculously, and all of your creatures just swinging in with the loads of damage. Aven Mind Sense is a card that I've added in from Admin Ket because I've been quite impressed with how it works, and to be perfectly honest, it's really nice against those decks that want to go through your library. Instead, you're going to be limiting them, which is really good to have. And a flash 2/1 flyer is actually quite useful to have too. Recruit of the Guard is a fantastic card, absolutely fantastic. 3 cost, 1/1, enter the battlefield. You get a creature with toughness 2 or less from your library, which is going to be loads and loads and loads of targets to have as well. So this is really, really good work. Next up, we've got Fiend Hunter, Hand Banishing Priest. These are going to be my 2 cards. Are going to be doing this ability for me in white anyway. I did have Fairgrounds Warden in there, but to be perfectly honest, I went for the human theme more so, purely down to the fact that I've got a lot of other cards in here, like Thalia's Lieutenant and Precinct Captain and stuff like that, where humans are going to be really, really useful to have. So they've been very, very good. And then we've added in 2 new cards here to really help with the Blink archetype. We've got Flicker Wisp, which has been fantastic again. Modern Masters 2017 has helped, and an Eldrazi Displacer, which I've picked up for actually pretty cheap. So these are great. I mean, Flicker Wisp is when it enters the battlefield, you get to exile and bring something back, which is always nice. Plus, it's a nice little aggressive card as well there. Whereas Eldrazi Displacer, is 2 and a colourless to exile a creature and return it back. So you can do this as many times as you want if you've got the mana for it. Plus, in my cube as well, in my basic land pool, I've actually put wastes in there if people wanted to do that. So those have been really useful to have. So moving on into the 4-drops, we've now got Gisela the Broken Blade. So I really, really do like this card. I've wanted to get this for ages, just never managed to open her up. So for 2 and 2 white, you've got yourself a 4/3 flying first strike lifelink, which is absolutely fantastic. To be perfectly honest, the bottom half of the card doesn't really matter because I no longer have Bruna in my cube. I got rid of her because she was just too expensive and wasn't really doing as much as I'd hoped. But no, this is just really, really solid for the price. Next one was a new card here. We've got Hero of Bladehold. So for 2 and 2 white, it's a 3/4 and it's got Battle Cry, so that's really going to help with that white weenies or token strategies, just to pump them all up a little bit. And whenever she attacks, you get 2 1/1 white creature tokens as well that can be tapped and attacking, so that's always useful. So whenever she attacks, she's actually going to be pumping and getting 2/2/1s realistically when they're attacking as well, which is always good. SRAM's Expertise again is in the creature section because you're going to get yourself 3 Servo artifact creature tokens for that 4 mana, plus you get to cast a card with convert mana cost 3 or less. I've been really impressed with the Expertise cards. really have been. They've been fantastic. I mean, the floor of them, it can be quite low depending on what you've got in your hand, but the ceiling can just be absolutely amazing. So have been very impressed with those. Ranger of Eos, again, is another card from Modern Masters 2017 that have been added in here. This has been fantastic as well. So for 3 and a white, get yourself a 3/2. Enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 1 or less, reveal them, put into your hand, which is always really nice to have, especially, you know, later on in the game, or if you've got certain cards out, which means you can get some more 1-drops with humans and just really, you know, pump them up. So that's really nice to have. Next up, again, Modern Masters 2017, we've got Linvala, Keeper of Silence. So it's 3/4 flyer, and activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. So that's a really nice card in a more white control style deck. And I have been quite impressed with this because there are a fair more creatures than I realised within my cube that actually get affected by this. So that's really nice. Archangel of Tides is next, and I do like this card. It's more of a case of this one might be the next one to disappear if I can get another really solid 4-drop, just because, you know, the mana cost isn't fantastic. So for 1 and 3 white, you get a flying 3/5. As long as untapped, creatures your opponents control can't attack you unless they pay 1 for each of them, which is really nice to have. Or whenever she does attack, creatures you can't block unless their controller pays 1 for each of them as well. So that's really nice just to get in an extra little bit of damage when you know your opponent hasn't got that much mana left. And the last 2 cards that we've added in here are, again, from Modern Masters 2017, we've got Restoration Angel and Felidar Guardian here, which are just here for, you know, adding a lot more into the Blink archetype we've got going on. I've tried to add into the cube anyway more recently. I really do like Restoration Angel. It's just an amazingly solid card. Felidar Guardian is a little bit weaker, and I mean, this is actually in foil. I'm not sure we can see that, but no, I mean, the only positive with Felidar Guardian is the fact that it can blink any permanent rather than just a creature. So this can become very useful depending on the situation. Plus, it means you could potentially make the infinite combo in my cube if you really wanted to with Saheeli Rise. So that's why they're in there. So moving on into the 5-drops, we've got a couple of Army in the Cans here in the form of Cloudgoat Ranger and Angel of Invention. I mean, I'm more than happy with either of them. Angel has got the benefit of you can pump her up rather than making tokens as well, so there's a little bit more flexibility here. And Cloudgoat Ranger gets to use the little Kithkin warriors that you end up making, and, you know, pumping him up and giving it flying. So there are some extra variations you can do to get more use out of them, but I really do like Angel, especially for the Anthem effect. Angel of Sanctions is a new card from Amonkhet that I've added in, and I really do like it. It's a Banisher Priest effect is always really useful. Exiling a non-land permanent your opponent controls can really help at any point in time. Plus, the best part about this is the Embalm effect. So if your opponent does manage to get rid of this creature and getting their permanent back, you then get the chance on the opportunity to use the Embalm effect there to bring it back and choose another permanent, or, you know, just get down the opponent's existing one. So really nice to have. Archangel Avacyn, I'm really happy to have got hold of her. She is just an absolutely incredible card. 4/4 flash for 5 with flying and vigilance is still pretty good stats by herself. Enters the battlefield, you get to your creatures you control gain indestructible at the end of the turn, which is really nice. Plus, whenever a non-creature token, or sorry, yeah, non-angel creature, dies, flip her over and she becomes a 6/5 flyer, which is really nice. Plus, it means there's a little bit of a mini board wipe going on there, dealing 3 damage to each other creature and each opponent as well. So that's always useful to have, and to be perfectly honest, even if it does take away a lot of your creatures, you're still going to be doing a fair amount of damage to your opponents. Cataclysmic Gearhulk is still here, so 4/5 with vigilance for 5, plus a Cataclysm effect on top, which just can be very handy. Plus, it also then means if you've got a load of smaller creatures and your opponent has got a better board presence than you have, doing this wipes away their advantage and you leave yourself a 4/5 on the board, which is really nice. And the last 2 cards we've got here are mini reanimator effects going on. So Karmic Guide is, you know, slightly smaller with a 2/2, plus protection for black as well, which is always useful, a bit of a removal there, but it means you can get any creature back from the graveyard, which is useful. Whereas Revel Arc there is a 4/3 flyer. When it leaves the battlefield, you get to return 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, which is very handy. Plus, you can pay as a vote cost just to be able to have that ability by itself. So again, 2 little mini reanimator style cards going on there. Last of all, in the 6-drops, we've got the last Army in the Can in white here with Captain of the Watch. So it's a 3/3 with Vigilance, with other soldiers getting +1/+1 and having Vigilance. I mean, there's a few soldiers for sure in my lower end there, so they're going to get a little bit of a buffer. Plus, when it enters the battlefield, you get 3/1/1 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield. Realistically, they're all 2/2s as well, so that is a lot of value for that card. And of course we've got Sun Titan. I think we can just about see the foiling on that. I really do. This is my favourite artwork for Sun Titan, and this is just solid. A 6/6 for 6 with Vigilance. Enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to return a target permanent card with 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's like a mini little reanimator stealth thing going on there as well, and it's just so good to have, especially if you've got a few mid-range white cards, or even to benefit in a white weenies deck as well. So that is really nice. So moving on into the instance, we've got ourselves Mana Tithe, and I had to get this full art promo. It just looks absolutely stunning, and you just don't expect to have a little counterspell in white, so that's always really nice to have. Sword the Plowshares is in there. I mean, this is just a solid piece of removal. I really do like that. Condemn is still here from previously, so 1 cost, but target attacking creature to bottom of its owner's life library. It's a controller gains life equals to toughness, again solid. And then the last of our little 1-drop removals there is Path to Exile, and that's again really solid. Moving to 2-drops now, we've got Immolating Glare here, so 2 cost, instant speed, destroy target attacking creature, can become very useful. Disenchant again is just nice to have an instant speed, destroying a target artifact or enchantment, so that can be quite useful. One of the older cards here, nice white border there in Balance. I have been very impressed with this card, and I'm so glad to have picked it up. It was actually pretty cheap, to be perfectly honest. And it just allows you to even up the board, which is quite nice to have. Card I've been very impressed with from Amonkhet, and it is a foil. I am trying my best to show it. You can just about see it there. 3 cost, exile target artifact or enchantment at instant speed. Again, we've got Disenchant there, but the benefit for this one on top is the cycling ability on it to get draw if the situation arises. So that's very handy to have there. Another recommendation I've been given is Devouring Light. So for 1 and 2 white, it's got Convoke on it as well. You get to exile target attacking a blocking creature. So again, very useful. Eerie Interlude has stayed because I wanted to make sure I had a few more cards in here for the Blink archetype, and this can be very useful with a lot of enter the battlefield of triggers. And Unexpectedly Absent is the last one we've got in instance, so this is nice at X cost plus 2 white, put target non-land permanents in its owner's library beneath the top X cards of that library, so that can become very useful if your opponent's got a massive threat. So again, very happy to have got that. So moving on into the sorceries, I mean, most of these are removal. So we've got Declaration in Stone for 1 and white, exile target creature, and all other creatures controller's control with the same name. That player then investigates for each non-token creature exiled this way. So that's very useful to have, especially if it's against a load of tokens. You can just get rid of all of them, which is really good. Collective Effort, which is a really good card, and this is my promo from Eldritch Moon. So for 1 and 2 white, we've got Sorcery, and you can escalate it by tapping untapped creatures you control, so that can become really useful. Destroy target creature power 4 or greater, destroy target enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on each target creature you control. So that can be really useful, and you can get all of those abilities up quite easily. Then we've got our nice little board wipes going on here. So we've got Cataclysm, Armageddon, and Wrath of God. So I got these from the Vault Annihilation. I love the foils on them, it's really nice, and I do like to have the board wipe presence in my cube now. It's been really nice. So again, we're going to have keeping 1 of each type, destroying all lands. I mean, my friends aren't that happy with that, but Wildfire is in here as well, so I had to put it in there. And then Fumigate's the last one here, so destroy all creatures, you gain 1 life, so this can be a nice swing for you, especially against the token strategy. Next up we've got Terminus. So again, for 6, it's put all creatures to the bottom of their owner's library, or you get the Miracle cost for 1, which can be quite useful. Martial Coup is another one of those nice board wipes, so you get to put X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, which is really handy. So it works out in a way that you get to have loads of creatures on top, and if X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures, so you get a nice board presence while wiping away theirs. And then we've got Entreat of Angels from Modern Masters 2017, creating X 4/4 or angel creature tokens or you get yourself the miracle cost on it and can really swing the battlefield in your way. And the last is the same as before with Decree of Justice, so this is either getting yourself some angels onto the battlefield or using the cycling cost to get soldier creature tokens depending on what you need at that time. So again, very, very useful card. So moving on to the enchantments in white, there is a fair few of them, but I have reduced it from the amount there was before. So starting up, we've got Seal of Cleansing, which is really useful to have out because you can sacrifice it any time to get rid of an artifact or enchantment, so very useful. Next, we've got Bonds of Faith, so this is a nice bit of removal to tie an opponent's creatures down, or it means you've got a Penalty of Humans in white, so you can always buff them up, so I quite like to have the versatility on that card. Blind Obedience is next. I did have Authority of the Consuls as well, but I felt that was just too many of the same effect, so I've kept with this one because for 1 and a white, artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped rather than the rest of the creatures, and the Extort ability on top is always useful for that extra bit of life gain. So next up we've got 2 Anthem effects here. So we've got Always Watching, which is really nice for non-token creatures, get +1/+1 in Vigilance, whereas Spear of Heliod here, get creatures you get control get +1/+1, plus means you can then play 1 and 2 white to tap it, destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn as well, so can be quite useful. Next up we've got Oblivion Ring and Banishing Light, so again nice pieces of removal there, and very, very useful to have. Next we've got Ghostly Prison. Again, this is still here just because I quite liked it, having it in a control deck against, you know, aggro, which has been quite useful. So creatures can't attack you unless the controller plays 2 for each creature, so that's really nice. Cast Out is another one of those cards that I have got from Amonkhet, and I've been very impressed with it. So for 3 and a white, you've got yourself a flash enchantment. So when it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent until it leaves. Plus the cycling ability on it is very, very useful, but I really do like being able to flash this in to get rid of one of the opponent's really big threats. Next we've got Faith Unbroken, so for 3 and a white you get to enchant a creature you control and exile a target creature and opponents until it goes away, and it gives the opponent your creature +2/+2 as well. So again, I quite like to be able to get rid of their threats and still have a use for the card. And then the last of all, we've got our last anthem here, which is for 3 and 2 white. It's got Flash as well, which is very, very useful in certain combat situations, giving your creatures +2/+2 as well. So again, really, really impressed with this card as well. So there we have all the cards in my cube for the colour white and the changes that have been made. Needless to say, you can probably tell that the cube is just so much better than it was before. I mean, I'm actually slightly embarrassed at what the first cube I had was. It was just dreadful, to be perfectly honest, but you know, over time, as it will do with everybody's cubes, it will help develop and grow to be even better. And thank you to all of you for putting comments in the comment section below for suggestions of cards that I could put into my cube that would improve everything and what cards should be taken out. Now, if you'd like to do the same again, I would really appreciate it. I'm sure there's going to be cards in here that could definitely be improved. So again, in the comment section below, just put your suggestions down there, because it'd be absolutely incredible for me if you could do the same again. And I just again like to say thank you to everybody that did so before. My cube is so much more fun to play. So all of the cube update videos will be put into a playlist, and I'll put a link in the description below for that as well, so you can go through and check out the specific colours that you'd like to see what I've got in there. There'll also be a cube tubes link in the description below as well, so you can have a look at the overall cube in one go with a visual spoiler on that. Plus you can always draft the cube as well if you'd like to give me a little bit of feedback on that, and it would always be appreciated. I would just like to take this moment to thank my Patreons of the channel. I can't thank you enough for the help and support that you're giving me. If you'd like to do the same, head over to patreon.com/lifebeginsat20, and there'll be a link in the description below for that as well, where there are plenty of rewards to choose from. With your support, we can really push to make this channel even better. Be sure to check out our sponsor, 5collarcombo.com, for a great range of Magic the Gathering accessories with stunning artwork, plus a great app to draft and create decks on the fly. Use the referral code LifeBeginsAt20 for 5% off. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. With your support, we can really help this channel to grow. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.